Welcome to the Red Clinic Podcast. I'm Dr. Schwalen, licensed psychologist and expert in the treatment of eating disorders. Today I want to talk about body image and comments that our children can make about themselves when they have an eating disorder and even when they don't, because body image is it's just a real thing. And with going back to school and things that kids are going to be facing when they get there in terms of worries about what their friends think of them, worries about if they fit in and if they're good enough, we're bound to get comments and questions or topics of conversation that come up with our children. So what I really want to talk about today is this concept of, I work with families all the time. I work with kids, adolescents, I work with adults, and then I work with families and parents. And so when I'm treating families, it's very common when a child has an eating disorder that maybe the mom or dad also used to have an eating disorder, or they are really influenced, just like most of us in our society, by diet culture and the thin ideal, and the concept of being thin is also the same as being beautiful and successful. And so this is just the culture we live in, and a lot of people unknowingly have just kind of bought into that whole ideal. And just because it's out there doesn't mean it's the right thing or that we have to just blindly accept those ideals. So a lot of times what I'll come up against in a family therapy session with a family is maybe some of that internalization of the thin ideal and this concept that being skinny equals being successful. And so parents don't really know how to handle a situation when their daughter or their son comes to them and says, I'm fat, or I'm so ugly. And they share these self-deprecating thoughts that they're having about themselves. A while ago I had a mom who had shared with me, my daughter said this to me, and I said, well, where's that coming from? And no, you're not. And if you really want to focus on how you look or change the way you look, maybe we should just talk about the way you're eating or if you're exercising enough. So, mom thought she was being helpful in that situation because her daughter said she didn't like the way she looked. And so in that situation, mom is giving examples or strategies for the child to actually do something about it. And so that's sometimes a response that I've heard from parents. I also hear parents who will say, my daughter came to me and said, I'm too skinny. Okay, I've heard that from different clients who may have an eating disorder, but not necessarily one that has to do with a fear of weight gain. And so they know they're different because maybe they're a failure to thrive kind of kiddo, or they've always been lower on the growth curve and they're just smaller than the rest of the kids. And so they'll say things like, I'm too small or I'm too skinny. And in those situations, parents have told me they've responded with, well, if you want to grow or if you want to get bigger, let's just eat more, right? So again, in those situations, both parents, as a response to either I'm too fat or I'm too skinny, is basically sending the message that we can change the way we look based on the food we eat or how much of it we eat. All right? And as you know, if you've been listening to all my episodes in the Recovery Clinic, we really want to focus on food as fuel, food as a means to live our best life, food as a way to enjoy social interactions. Food is not something that always has to be associated with the way we look or growing or changing the way our body is. And so when we communicate like that, we don't mean to, but we're essentially driving home the message that if you want to change the way you look, just change the way you eat. And so I want to just kind of caution parents to really first be aware of this in themselves. If they have some of these thoughts or beliefs, to recognize that in themselves, to not feel bad if you do, because we live in the culture that we do, and diet culture and diet mentality and thin ideal is just so prevalent. But your awareness is so important because it can help you change the way you respond in these situations. With both of those parents, I told them, well, think about if your child came to you and said, I'm so dumb. Would you then go ahead and tell your child, well, then let's read some more books and do some more studying, right? To help you be more smart. No, I think what you would do is maybe do something like, hey, where's that coming from? Why are we being so harsh on ourselves right now? Where's this self-judgment? Where does it come from? Why is it here? You might do more of that if your kid said, I'm so dumb. But if they say, I'm so skinny or I'm so fat, why are we saying, here, why don't we do this to address that? So I put that out there because I want us to be able to feel prepared for when these situations come up. If you're raising girls or boys in this society, in the American society, it's inevitable that at one point in their growing up years, they will share with you that they have some kind of body dissatisfaction. So it's known, the statistics are that 9 out of 10 people, is probably 9.5 out of 10 people now. If you put them all in a room, 9 out of 10 people are going to say at one point in their life, if not currently, are experiencing some kind of body image or body dissatisfaction. And so it's just a real thing. It's so normal in our American society that we all just kind of feel dissatisfied and we want to change something about ourselves. And I've spoken about kind of where that comes from, right? A lot of it's from the social media and what's out there in diet culture and diet industry is, in order to keep making money, diet industry wants us to buy their products so that we can start to feel better about ourselves or think we're doing something to change what we don't like about ourselves. And so our kids are dealing with that too. When your child comes to you with, I'm so ugly, or I'm so fat, or I'm too skinny, or whatever they may be saying, we really want to go to a place that's kind of deeper when we address it with them. We want to be able to first just validate their feelings like, hey, I know that it can be hard to feel good about your body. I know that. It can be hard because if you don't have an eating disorder, you've probably experienced that also. So I think that's something a lot of people can understand, eating disorder or not. It's better than saying, no, you're not, or you're so cute, or where did that come from? Because if you try to convince your child otherwise with some of those, I'm going to compliment you, or I'm going to help talk you out of this, or I'm going to throw solutions at you, right? They may leave that interaction with you not feeling heard or understood. But if you can get on that level of, hey, I know it's hard to feel good about our bodies sometimes. I know that it can be really hard to always accept just the way we are. I know because I've been there, right? That's another step you could take as a parent, because the chances are more than likely you have been there at some point in your life. And then you want to really talk about just in our society, the fact that there's a real thing called distorted body image. We all are inundated with, selfies and taking the perfect picture and looking just right and putting this or that filter on the photos that we post or look at. We're all really inundated with distorted body images, right? When we're looking at magazine covers or social media posts of people who've been photoshopped or airbrushed. And so developing those critical thinking skills in our children of, hey, the things that we're even exposed to on a daily basis can contribute to the way that we may not always feel good about ourselves. How do you think that stuff affects you? And you can have that conversation with your kiddo if they're willing to go there with you. And then the other thing that you want to do in your family as a whole is kind of create this culture of health versus body size or appearance. So if we're talking about health in like a broad term, of, hey, health is related to not just my physical health or my physical well-being, but health is related to how I feel emotionally and how positive and healthy my relationships are and where I'm at spiritually in my life and how I feel psychologically, right? So health is about quality of life. If we can kind of create that culture in our home of, well, we want to always look at why we're doing the things we're doing, and we want to choose those things that are truly good for us in many aspects, not just because it's the fad diet or the cool thing to do, or because someone said that they've tried it and now we're thinking about doing it. We really need to evaluate, like, how does this truly impact the quality of our life? And if you lead that as parents, your children will learn that through your modeling of redefining, what's true health. It's not just your weight. It's not just numbers on a scale. It's not just how many calories did you eat today. It's really this broader sense of the word in terms of, are you happy and do you have quality of life? Now, if your child is maybe getting the message from their physician about their weight or what they may be at risk for, there are teenagers out there that have diabetes or like type 1 and type 2 diabetes, right? Or they've been getting the message from coaches that they need to change the way they look in order to be the athlete they want to be. We need to have conversations with our kids in our home about what we value. Hey, maybe coach is putting this emphasis on weight and appearance. Is this really in your best interest to be around that? And as a family, you may have to make a tough decision. Or you may equip your child with information about, hey, like these are the mindsets out there. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to buy into them. However, there are ways to deal with that. There are ways to go and set and communicate what your boundaries are, what you're okay with and what you're not okay with. And if you as a family value health over physical appearance, weight, and numbers, your child will get really good at communicating that as well. And then the last thing I want to put out there before I say, if it's to the point that you need professional help, please go seek that out, is talk to your child about their internal dialogue. So when a child says, I'm so ugly or I'm so fat, it's going to impact the quality of their life in a way that, they may not even realize. If they're saying those things to themselves, they're probably less likely to go out and have conversations or put themselves out there and make new friends or enjoy life experiences. Instead, what they're doing is they're sending this message to themselves that they're just not good enough, or there's a reason why someone might not like them. And so in essence, they become almost their own worst enemy. They limit themselves and the type of quality of life they could have. And so I always say, internal dialogue is also something we can model. It's interesting and might be uncomfortable at first, but it's really important for our children to hear us saying great things about ourselves out loud, so they can even understand what that internal dialogue, what those statements can look like. So instead of parents walking around all day saying, I'm so busy, I'm so stressed, I don't know how I'm going to get all this done, I don't know why I'm getting all these responsibilities, or I just can't do anymore. It can look something like, hey, I'm really proud of myself. I just got way more done today than I thought I would. Or I look really good in this outfit, don't I? Right? So they start hearing what those self-affirmations really sound like, and you're modeling that for them. So then they're more likely to feel comfortable talking to themselves and about themselves in that manner. So next time your child says, I'm too skinny, don't respond with just eat more. Right? Because it's the same thing as when they say I'm too dumb and you saying then just read more. And if they say I'm too fat, don't respond with, well, let's start some exercising, or no, you're not, you're beautiful. Instead, take that curious standpoint and start asking them some questions and validate them in terms of, I know it can be hard to feel good about our body all the time. What's that like for you? Let's talk about our culture and our society. Let's talk about the messages we're getting. And let's redefine health and success for us and our family, and then let's lead with that. So there you have it. That's the Red Clinic Podcast.